Thanks, Lascan Corda. Taoiseach, when precisely did you become seriously concerned about the proposed new National Maternity Hospital deal? Last week, you told this House there were fundamental problems with two aspects of the deal: ownership and governance. Given I've been telling you exactly that for the past 4 years, I'm quite curious about when you finally saw the light. Your comments in the House last week were surprising in a number of respects. For a start, it had been pointed out to you for years by myself and others that this deal is manifestly bad for the public. Yet you blithely ignored all of those warnings. Whenever I have raised concerns about ownership, governance and ethos, I have been fobbed off with assurances that a legal framework was all that was outstanding. Work started on that legal framework in 2017, but 4 years later, there's still no sign of it. There's a second reason your comments were unexpected, Taoiseach. You complained bitterly about the proposed 99-year lease, saying it wasn't satisfactory and we should own the site. But it was your government that proposed a lease in the first place. Back in 2017, officials in the Department of Health had to twist the arms of the board of St Vincent's to get them to even consider a lease. That is all laid out in the correspondence released by St Vincent's this week. But in July 2019, you referred to the proposed lease yourself in this House. You said St Vincent's has agreed in principle to provide the state with a 99-year lease of the land upon which the new maternity hospital will be built. You framed it as a win for the state, that St Vincent's had agreed to provide a lease. St Vincent's have been criticised for the curt letter they released this week, and certainly much of it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. But I can only imagine their shock and amazement at your latest comments. Taoiseach, this mess has your party's fingerprints all over it. James Riley announced the project in 2013. You were the next minister, followed by Simon Harris, until finally last year Stephen Donnelly was given what can only be described as the poison chalice. So I'm curious, Taoiseach, given the longevity of this crisis, what prompted you to get to your feet in this House last week and express serious concern? Was there something significant about the timing? I know it is an issue that voters in Dublin Bay South care deeply about. Perhaps their concern has been a catalyst for some long overdue action. So my questions are, in light of yesterday's debate, what steps does your government now intend to take to ensure the new publicly funded National Maternity Hospital is constructed on land owned by the state? Will you now guarantee that the new facility will be fully owned and governed by the state? And is serious consideration being given to Tala, James's or anywhere else?
Thanks very much, Deputy. Like you, I've always been interested in this project, and I've always had concerns about it. What prompted me, quite frankly, was a straight question from Deputy Breed-Smith. I would not have answered that question had I not been asked it. And as I think you've pointed out in your remarks, it might be 2-3 years ago. That was perhaps the last time that I was asked publicly or in this House to give my views on the National Maternity Hospital project, and conscious of the fact that negotiations have been underway during that period, I've been restrained in what I've said. In relation to the position of the government, this government and indeed the previous government which I led, our position has always been one that favoured co-location over integration, that insists that the new hospital, like the existing one, must be clinically independent, must be operationally independent, and any procedure, any gynaecological or obstetrical procedure that is lawful in this state must be provided for in this hospital. We want to own the hospital, ideally own the land as well, and we want proper representation on the board, and the governance piece is as important as the land ownership piece, if not more, in my view. So that's my position on it, and that hasn't changed. For the record, in 2017 and 2018, 2 memos for information were brought to government. Check this with the Cabinet Secretariat. No memo for decision was brought to government. no memo decision has yet been brought to government. So a government decision on this, on the lease, on the governance, has yet to be made. Was not made by the previous government, has not yet been made by this government. Had it been made back in 2017 or 2018, I assume the project would have gone to tender by now, but it didn't. So 2 memos for information went to government, no memo for decision. That still has not happened yet, and we are where we are in that regard. I want to say that the government is committed to the development of this hospital. It is planned for the St Vincent's University Hospital campus at Elm Park, and that's set out in the programme for government. We haven't given examination to alternative sites. That includes, what we need to do now is to conclude the governance arrangements necessary to ensure protection of this public investment for the public good, and in particular that there is, as I said, an absolute legal binding assurance that all legally permissible obstetrical and gynaecological services will be provided in the new hospital as they are currently in Holles Street. And I believe there is universal agreement in this House that that must be done. The project is unprecedented and it is inherently complex because it involves relocating one voluntary hospital onto the campus of another, hospitals neither of which we own or control at present. But what's different now is the state is going to invest hundreds of millions of euros in a new building on that campus, and that does change things in my view and in the view of government. We have clear legal advice to the state that the draft legal framework ensures that all legally permissible medical services will be provided in the new hospital, and we're having that double checked at present. And in relation to the 99-year lease, government was not satisfied with that. That's why negotiations continued, and that's where this idea of a further 50-year extension, for example, has come from, and that matter is far from concluded.
It's really a bit rich, Tánaiste, to say that you express serious concerns just because you happen to be asked a question here. Now, come on. Look, Tánaiste, the mantra from government is that the Mulvey deal is the solution. But do you not now accept that the Mulvey deal is the problem? Because apart from the issue of the lease of the site, what the Mulvey deal sets out is a corporate structure which entails St Vincent's really owning the full operation of the new National Maternity Hospital. Because under that deal, the National Maternity Hospital company is to become a wholly owned subsidiary of St Vincent's. And isn't that really the nub of the problem?
Thanks, Deputy. You know, in my mind, we've departed from the Mulvey Agreement some time ago. The Mulvey Agreement, Mr Mulvey was appointed by Simon Harris to... I would, if possible, like to answer the question. That's Cancorla. As I was about to say, the Mulvey Agreement, in my mind at least, has already been departed from by the government in certain aspects. Initially, the building was to be owned not by the state. My understanding is that has now been resolved, that the state will own the building that was not originally there in the Mulvey Agreement. And also we've ongoing discussions around the composition of the board of the NMH. Initially there was to be no representation, now one public interest director. We're not satisfied with that. So the Mulvey Agreement is an agreement between Vincent's and NMH. Government is aware of that, but we've never said that was the end of it. Well, we haven't, because we've changed on the lease, we've changed on the ownership of the hospital, for example, since then.
Moving on to the next question, the regional group,